Welcome, Benoist and Bernard. Now, we were supposed to be joined by Eileen Burbidge of Passion Capital, but she is not here. We will delicately call it a transportation snafu. But we will miss her, but we're happy to have Bernard and Benoist. Just a little bit of information about these very prominent European venture capitalists, in case you're not familiar with their work. Benoist has been a venture capitalist for 25 years, invested in, of course, the video sharing site Dailymotion, Criteo, the retargeted advertising company, among many others. Bernard, the founder of Business Objects, which he sold to SAP, and then in the last 10 years, a venture capitalist who has invested in such companies as Citymapper, Crowdcube, and then together you guys did Talon, which went public last year, the big data company. What does the celebration look like last year after the company pulled off its IPO?
In fact, it was 2 years ago. It was
okay, now 2 years ago.
July 2016?
July 2016, and since then the stock has performed extraordinarily well since the company almost tripled of value in a year and a half.
Okay, well, we're here to talk about the venture capital environment in Europe, particularly in a post-Brexit England. I want to start with one chart from the Bloomberg terminal that we're going to put up on the screen here, and we can see it on these screens, which shows the kind of regional distribution of venture capital across 3 countries. Shows, maybe at least for this latest quarter, the UK ceding some of its venture capital dominance. I mean, hard to draw a long-term kind of trend from that, but do you think that a post-Brexit London, or a London that's in the midst of this long process, does become a less attractive place to invest or start a company? And Bernard, since you are based in London, maybe we'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think London has always been the center, and it's reflected in these numbers, although things have been changing. If you look not at the money that was invested in companies, but the money that was raised by venture firms. Actually, last year, I think France, for the first time, took the lead over the UK. So it's a leading indicator to how things will evolve in the future. I think London is going to be affected by Brexit, in my view. I think Brexit is a real shame, and to be honest, because I think Europe as a whole was really starting to work really well, and having the several hubs, London, Berlin, Paris, Stockholm, and they all had their own advantages, but they all cooperated, and there was fluidity among these hubs. And now there's one that is disconnecting to some degree. There's still a lot of uncertainty on how things are going to evolve, because we don't know all the elements. But I think on the movement of labor, I think we'll have a lot less fluidity than before, for sure.
Benoist, is Brexit rebalancing the European tech landscape?
Yes, of course. Once again, I mean, the UK Brexit, like Bernard was saying, it's a shame. Of course, due to Brexit, I mean, the venture in the UK will be less attractive, but also on the other side, venture outside of UK will be more attractive, especially countries like France or even Southern Europe, like Spain or the Nordics. They are becoming more and more entrepreneur-friendly. The ecosystem in all these countries is of much higher quality than it was like 10 years ago. And as of today, we are just seeing what we have been growing for the past 10 years, building an ecosystem. An ecosystem, you need to have some serial entrepreneur. Of course, it's kind of obvious what I'm saying, but once you get serial entrepreneur, you're in good shape, because serial entrepreneurs are much more qualified than the first time you do your company. And this is why I would say, like in France, I mean, we are seeing more and more success, which was not the case 10 or 15 years ago. So we're definitely in good shape. So
well, as Nicholas Zenstrom said on stage this morning, which I thought was interesting, is that the opportunity is becoming equalized. Every city now is an opportunity to be a tech hub. Before I ask you guys the next question, though, I want to put this first topic, pose it to you as a poll. So open up the Bloomberg app, and the poll question is, will a post-Brexit London be a less attractive place to start or fund a technology startup? And as we talk, you can answer that question on your phones. The follow-up is Brexit changing your personal investment decisions? How does it factor in?
On my side, on Idinvest side, absolutely not. I mean, before the Brexit, I mean, UK We used to invest approximately, 10 or 20% of our fund in the UK. I mean, UK was not our first place of investment because the London space is quite crowded. No one is waiting for us because there is so many venture funds based in the UK. UK fund or US fund were based in, were trying to enter Europe through London space. So UK was not just opportunistic, so 10 or 20%, and in the next fund, it will be more or less the same. So no effect, but once again, UK was not our market number one for investment. So there were so many opportunities outside of UK. So
Bernard?
Well, we're based in London, so we are pan-European. We invest everywhere, but because we're based in London, we've always had a fairly significant amount of our investment there. So in the past, it's been around 40–50%. It's probably going to stay around the same. But what's interesting is that the quality of the opportunities that we see in everywhere else is increased dramatically. And so we invest everywhere. Now we invest in Denmark, in Sweden, in France, in Germany, and Spain. And it's a very, very vibrant opportunity now in Europe. It's nothing to do with what it was 5–10 years ago. How
about the geographic distribution of your partnerships? Do you start to look at opening offices elsewhere?
Right now, no, because we like to be all together for a chunk of the week. But so we're always together on Mondays and Tuesdays. Afterwards, we spread out. We have each our own geographies that we go to. But no, we have one office in London, and we feel it's fine for now.
So, we always thought of Europe as really sort of kind of outgunned when it just came to kind of the sheer amount of capital, particularly vis-a-vis the US. And then, of course, recently, SoftBank raises this massive vision fund, headquarters it in London. It's $100 billion, and Masayoshi-san is talking about Vision Fund 2 now. From your perspectives, how does the Vision Fund, kind of change the balance of power in the venture game, particularly in Europe?
Once again, I mean, the size of the fund is not the key. I mean, it's like, it's not because a company is raising like a big amount of money that the company is a good company. I mean, for me, a company who is raising, I would say, 100 million euro, it means that this company will burn 100 million euro in the coming years. So
it allows them to be a little more reckless?
Yes. So once again, of course, you need to have the correct amount of money to finance a company, but you don't need to have too much money. As of today, there is much more money as compared to 10 years ago. But I would say, I will not say that money is missing in the ecosystem. We are more looking to do some nice opportunity, looking for good entrepreneur. And once you find a good entrepreneur, you'll find the money. So money for me is not an issue. Of course, it's always good when Masayoshi-san is making big announcement of a billion of euro fund. But for me, it's not the key. I mean, the key is to get some nice entrepreneur. And once you get nice entrepreneur, you get financing.
But Bernard, are those deals more competitive now because there is more capital?
Yeah, I mean, I have a slightly different view than Benoist maybe on this topic. I think it's great that there are availability of such capital now. I mean, the fact that the Vision Fund is in London doesn't mean much because he invests everywhere.
And it's an international fund, right? He just made a mint on Flipkart selling his stake to Walmart.
Yeah, so it's really where does this money go? I think the availability of capital is important to create really, really big companies. When you look at the companies in the US that have more than $50 billion in market cap, they raise on average $7.5 billion. You take an Uber, they have raised $11 billion and more now. You take the European companies in general, our European champions on average have raised about 1.5. So we're like 1 to 5 right now. Obviously, we don't have yet the size. We have shown that we can build really big companies. With Spotify, obviously, and then we have a few more. But I think that when you really talk about the mega scale businesses, the availability of late stage big capital, I think is an important element. But the good companies, my view is that the good companies, whether they are in Europe or not, should be able to find that capital. The capital at that stage is completely global.
Well, you've started to answer my next question, which is one that we contemplate a lot on the Bloomberg technology team, which is, why hasn't Europe spawned the kind of mega technology franchise that we have in the US with Amazon and Google and Apple and Facebook, and then in Asia with Alibaba and Tencent and Baidu, and now perhaps some of the phone makers like Xiaomi? What are the historic reasons, and is it changing?
So you want to start?
No.
So I think there are some infrastructure reason or foundational reasons, but things are changing. I mean, both the US and China have very, very big local markets, homogeneous local markets that have been quite conducive to this. I mean, the US has had this mentality of startup and venture, high growth, high velocity for quite a long time. And whereas Europe has taken now an approach to it, but it's fairly recent that the entire ecosystem is moving in that direction. But I would say things are changing in the sense that we have ambitious entrepreneurs. We have governments that think it's a good thing now, so every government is pushing. We have an ecosystem in these different hubs, there's city hubs, that are complete, and there is enough capital to grow these businesses. So I think we have most of the ingredients. We have seen that we can do it. I mean, there are some very, very big successes in Europe, but some really recent. We talked about Spotify, and there's Supercell that just was here, and then Zalando and many others. But they also, if you look at in Germany, the largest market cap in Germany is SAP. It's a pure tech company, right?
And SAP being the most conspicuous, perhaps, example of a European tech franchise.
Exactly. My view is that the next big European company will be a tech company. It'll be started by someone super aggressive, super young, that will follow the high velocity, high growth path. And I think it's just a matter of time, but we see the momentum.
But Benoist, I mean, Bernard mentioned Supercell. It's owned by Tencent. DeepMind is owned by Google. Some of these companies, and Spotify again is an example of one that has gone it alone. But they get to a certain size and they sell. Like, does something need to change in the mindset of the European entrepreneur or investor?
Yes and no. I mean, Europe is doing some great progress in terms of entrepreneurship. Like 10 or 15 years ago, the big success in Europe was, beside, of course, a business object, but which was like a long time ago, 25 years ago.
Yeah, speaking of selling, yeah.
Yeah, so,
you got a nice outcome.
Yeah.
A big success was, of course, Skype when it was sold to eBay,
right.
like 12 or 13 years ago. It was like Yahoo who bought, I don't remember the name of this company, French company, which was bought by Yahoo for $500 million.
Okay, cool.
And now, more and more, we're seeing in Europe like a multi-billion dollar company, which was not the case 10 years ago. I mean, Spotify is a good example. Now, Spotify is valued at, what, 30 billion dollars, which is almost the same market cap as Facebook the day before the IPO, almost. So,
right.
And 5 years ago, the biggest success in Europe was like a few billion market cap company. So we are making progress.
So you're saying the mindset is changing?
Yes, and also, all this big company was created like in the US, were created like in Silicon Valley. It took about 60 years to build Silicon Valley, and basically we just started in Europe to build like an ecosystem, 15 or 20 years ago. So it just take time.
That's a fair point.
Things are improving, but US is still be ahead.
Okay, we're going to ask another poll question. So again, on the app, will Europe ever spawn a mega technology company like Apple, Google, Alibaba, or Tencent? It's really the question of the day, so I'm looking forward to your answers on that. As we wait for people to vote, President Macron we're beginning several days of festivities here in Europe. He's holding the Technology for Good conference today. I think, Bernard, you're participating in that, looking at the future of education, the future of work, the future of diversity. I'd like to hear from you both what you think President Macron is accomplishing with some of these initiatives like Tech for Good and Viva Tech.
Well, in my view, the first thing he's doing is to give confidence. And he's created a completely different perception of France. I mean, certainly if you look at UK versus France 3 years ago and the UK versus France today, it's completely upside down. And he's put France on the map as an attractive place to be, an attractive place to start businesses. And he had started that quite a long time ago. He was very involved in the tech circles when he was the Minister of Economy. So it's a continuation. I think he wants to continue to push France as a place to be. And that's the right thing to do. I certainly am very supportive of his efforts.
Benoist, does anything tangible or real come from this?
No, of course not. It just gives confidence, but confidence in economy is key. So if you trust in the future, you do invest. If you don't trust in the future, you don't invest, and it's the end of the game, like in 2008. So just confidence. Of course, there is all the marketing around the French tech or whatever. For me, it's pure marketing, but it's good. Marketing is good for business, so just give confidence to entrepreneurs. People are saying that France is the right country to start a company, and it's very quite effective. So
I'm going to leave some time at the end of this discussion to ask questions from you, the audience. So please submit the questions on the app, and I'll take a look in a few minutes. GDPR, finally, after this years-long process, my understanding is it goes into effect at the end of the week.
The day after tomorrow.
Friday. Okay, right. Are your companies ready? What are the implications?
It's going to be like a tsunami.
A tsunami.
So,
okay.
Tsunami. You don't know where will you be after the tsunami will go through. I guess most of the company will be ready, but it will be definitely like a tsunami.
Well, our companies are ready, and we've been spending quite a lot of time with them just to make sure that they started their activities almost a year ago. So my view is that they're in good shape. How it will be implemented, I mean, in terms of what users want to do with it. I mean, right now it's interesting, but all of us, we receive, notification every day. I think we're already somewhat sick of them, and so we just say fine, opt in. So for a lot of them, it's not going to have immediate impacts, but when something bad happens in a given company, then I think that's when the request will come and will flow. So the companies need to be ready. I
guess my question is, this is a global marketplace. A company in Paris or Berlin is competing potentially, depending on the market, with a company in the US. Big companies are competing against, startups. Is this a tax, on European companies? And do startups have a disadvantage? Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg said yesterday in Brussels that Facebook will be ready for GDPR by the end of the week. I can imagine a 4-person startup's not equipped to deal with some of the obligations of the law. So, do you feel like GDPR has the potential to create a kind of new set of opportunities and challenges for tech startups?
Well, I think in general, any startup that is going to do business in Europe, or any tech company that's going to do business in Europe, will have to be impacted by GDPR. So the US companies are impacted also. And what they do for European customers, basically, it means that they're ready for everybody. But it's true that if you take a 10-person company in the US only focusing on the US versus the equivalent in Europe, it is something that Europeans have to deal with now. I mean, at the end of the day, I think this is something that will be adopted one way or the other in the US. The US tends to also have very strong regulation. Not all, but a number of companies, the ones who have been involved in IPOs in the US have gone through Sarbanes-Oxley, and it was a tough,
it was its own tax in a way.
Yes. So there's other types of regulation. I think my view is that the companies will cope. It'll be okay.
Okay. There's some great questions coming in here on the app, so I'm going to start to sprinkle some of these in. Robert Francis from the B2B Innovation Agency asks, is not being in Silicon Valley a disadvantage in gaining confidence as a venture capitalist? Is there any stigma now to being or is that gone, to being a European venture capitalist?
I mean, I would say today it's a fantastic time to be a venture capitalist in Europe. First of all, we've seen, and what's interesting, we see a number of European entrepreneurs who were in Silicon Valley come back to Europe now because they feel it's a completely different environment and they want to be part of this. Europe has not been as successful in the past, but I think there's plenty of opportunity now. There's a little less competition. Building a company in Silicon Valley, by the way, right now, is extremely hard because finding developers when you have to compete against Facebook and Google and all these
real estate prices, everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, an anonymous question here. You can't I imagine you can't be an investor these days without thinking quite a bit about artificial intelligence. Do either of you have a particular investment philosophy around AI right now?
Of course, like everybody, we are definitely looking at this investment in this space. So we did some investment in this space, and I would say like in a few years, we'll be more and more active in this
I mean,
area.
will it be the province of big tech companies that seem to be easily able to accumulate talent?
Yeah.
So what are the opportunities for startups and for venture capitalists?
Opportunities are huge. I mean, it's just very huge. So I mean, the future is ahead of us. So everything needs to be done. So,
Bernard, are there any particular companies that have attracted your interest?
Yeah, I mean, we have made a bunch of investments. I mean, we did our first investment that we did in AI was a company called Magic Pony, which did utilize AI for video compression. It got really quickly acquired. It was like a 6 months investment, and then Twitter acquired it. But I would say AI right now is everywhere. So it's almost impossible to see a software company that does not have AI and a component of machine learning or AI type algorithms as part of the software. So it's prevalent. And it's a way to disrupt a lot of different industries. So we have investment that use AI in health, in transport, in finance. You know, probably have at least 10 companies.
How about crypto? It's almost where I live in San Francisco. It's become the state religion, basically. Are either of you attracted to investments in the field, or are you considering how much instability?
I just want to put my joker. So
we've made one. We've made one investment in crypto, a company called Liautaud, which is a crypto wallet for actually emerging countries. But it's been extraordinarily successful. Obviously, future will tell the sustainability of it. But so far so good. It's been amazing.
Benoist, crypto, are you an optimist or a pessimist?
We don't want to invest in this area.
Well,
so
now we need to hear more. Why not?
I'm not convinced. You know, when I don't understand exactly the underlying technology and everything, I'm very skeptical to invest. So
fair enough.
Maybe it's bad. Maybe like in 2 years I will see.
We'll come back. We'll have this discussion. We'll see if you were correct or not. A question that really follows our discussion about the events here in Paris this week. How can government policy further champion the technology scene in France? So Benoist, apart from what, as you dubbed it, the marketing, if you could present a wish list to the government on how to really stimulate entrepreneurship here, what would be your top ask?
Well, a lot of things that's been done yet. I mean, especially like in the mentality and giving confidence. Once again, confidence is key in the economy. And of course, Macron, just after his election, pushes a labor law, which was mostly like, once again, marketing, because in this law, it was very superficial. But everybody in France thinks that the law for market law has been dramatically changed in the good way. So it's kind of positive. So we have to still work on this area to make the labor market more smoother and smoother. So.
Okay, I'll ask you both one last question as we run out of time. In the tech community, we've been almost scarred by let's call them the ethical lapses at companies like Uber. In the last year, Facebook with its privacy scandal. How do you guys, what one bit of counsel that you offer your entrepreneurs about building an ethical culture at their companies?
Actually, I mean, this is a good question. We have 5 big beliefs at Balderton, and one of them is we believe in the power of ethics. And we think it's a really important component, a cultural component that needs to be integrated at the very beginning of a company. We've seen all the problems that the large companies have had in tech, but also obviously non-tech, in Volkswagen and Liber scandal, all these kind of things. And what we see is that ethical issues are quite often viewed as an impediment to business to begin with. Oh, I don't want to deal with this. It's going to stifle my innovation and stuff. But the reality is that it actually should be a force of sustainability. And we've seen if you don't do it, then you have management teams get wiped out, billions of dollars wiped out. And so but it's something that needs to be integrated at the core of the foundation of a company, and it starts at the very beginning.
Benoist, quick.
Yeah, of course, ethical investment within Idinvest is part of our DNA, so I will not consider.
Would you say no to an investment because you sense ethical issues in the founding team?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Benoist, Bernard, thank you guys for joining us.